Waltz with Bashir is a movie surrounding the director's alleged real-life story of his attempt to remember his role within the war between Lebanon and Israel, during which he fought as an Israeli soldier occupying the nation. The entire movie is made using animation, with the exception of the ending, but we'll talk about that a little bit at the end. This movie has received critical acclaims on an international scale for its take on the war and has brought attention to Israeli movies. However, there is a question that needs to be asked. Is this movie a transnational film? We'll start by analyzing the definition of a transnational film, which will be a little difficult because there really isn't one. There is plenty of debate on what makes a film transnational, but while there is no true consensus on what that is, we'll look at the middle of the road for the definition that states that a transnational film manages to appeal to audiences away from where the movie was initially released, but does not see universal acclaim from the rest of the planet. This would be the difference between a movie that might be produced in North Korea, something that would never really gain traction outside of this country on average, or something like Star Wars, something that has reached the entire world with its popularity. Now we have to analyze the movie itself, and right away we notice the unique way that the movie is filmed, or I guess I should say animated. This unique style lends itself to have its own way of telling the story. While this is technically a documentary, the audience doesn't quite feel that way at times, or at least I didn't. We see characters having what are conceivably honest conversations between one another, as the protagonist is trying to unravel the mystery of his mental state to determine what he did while he was out there, trying to remember if he participated in the worst massacres of the war. Along the way, the audience is shown different events from the war from completely different perspectives, such as an ambush in a farm area seen somewhat from a child, or a soldier dancing in the streets while shooting and being shot at, and even scenes that show just how much the protagonist realizes that he was in a hell-on-earth situation, returning to the war with a scene that makes you wonder if he's going insane. At the end of the movie, we're shown different videos and photography about what the devastation and horror that was inflicted on the Lebanon during the war, which I'll refrain from showing here for family-friendly reasons. All of this, we're told, are real-life events that actually happened, as the video is classified as a documentary. Now, does this tell us that this movie is international? Not quite, but we can look at the work on Kamran Rastegar, who describes his own interpretation. Rastegar, and I'm sure I'm butchering his pronunciation of his name, so my apologies, looks at the film from a perspective on how it treats the victims. He states that the film, taking the perspective of Fulman, the film's director and the Israeli veteran as the protagonist, might in fact be retracting some of the personal responsibility of the events that occurred in the war by appealing more towards the former soldiers rather than the victims themselves, despite the ending scene. He talks about how the film drew inspiration with some of the directing, which some scenes take clear inspiration from the likes of Apocalypse Now, such as how both movies talk about traumatic events from the side of the invading force, and how both tend to take a lot of perspective away from the victims of the war by making it about the invaders themselves. He even described how the film can be interpreted as seeing trauma as a socially valuable trait that people can use to shift the narrative of the topic to themselves. The inspiration from American filming, as well the style in which the animation was produced, can lead us to believe that the film was not only appealed to the people in Israel who were tired of the fighting and might wish to learn more of their history, but also might lend itself to people from other nations that might wish to view a documentary of a conflict that they knew nothing about, while viewing it through the lens of an animation as a different take on documentaries. So, is this film transnational? I think it is. It's not something that people across the world are going to come to know by name, but it's clearly got ways to appeal to other people who would want to learn more about the planet. Is it a film that would do justice to the victims of the conflict depicted? That much is left to an individual interpretation. But it's a question that deserves to be talked about by the international community, and a transnational film might just be the discussion piece needed to talk about this important debate. My name's Caleb Morgan, and thank you for watching this essay.